Welcome to another edition of Real Talk Television. We will start with abbreviated show. Actually, we missed the first 10 minutes of the show, and we're gonna add this part on our introduction. We have today as our guest none other than the great learned Professor Dr. Ray Winbush from Morgan State University. We'll join this show in progress. He has a lot to say about politics, about social media, and about the issues of white supremacy. So please sit back and enjoy Dr. Ray Winbush.
A criminal that's running for president named Donald Trump. So I think that when black folk start buying into the idea that, reparations are in the past, slavery's over with, it just shows you the success of brainwashing that the system of white supremacy attempts to do to us every day of our lives. So we have to, get liberated ourselves about the place of white people in this world and our obligation to defeat white supremacy.
Yes. Wow. It's an ongoing fight. I know we just got 56 minutes, and
Right.
on our other end we had some glitches, but we still rolling. We still, got a lot of stuff to when we archive our show. One of the things I want to ask you about what's going on in the political climate with black folk. We got the choice of the lesser of two evils once for the 18th time throughout history. We have to vote for the lesser of two evils, meaning not that someone or situation is necessarily evil, but you got Joe Biden, an older man, and you got Donald Trump. But if you live in Louisiana and they got some people who emulate them, I'm in the heart of Donald Trump. I could say this. I'm in the real heart where Trump flags fly proudly down the street. Right. The only difference is I didn't go buy his tennis shoes the other day that he put out his sneakers,
Those gold things.
Yeah, that almost like some, we got a word down here called monkey shine. And I know that's kind of racist. That's kind of like self, I don't know. And people love monkey shine. People love crazy stuff. And Donald Trump and Joe Biden, what's your take on that?
Well, I always think, I'm going to say something that I know a lot of people are going to disagree with, but I'm going to just tell you what I think. My lovely sister-in-law called me the other day, and my nephew, who lives in Atlanta, said he's not voting for Trump or Biden. Trump for obvious reason, Biden for what is occurring in Gaza right now, broken promises to black folk in this country. So she was trying to call me. She was calling me to try to say, well, you need to talk my nephew into voting. And so I said, well, who you want me to talk him in? She said, Biden, of course. And I said, well, so we want to go Democratic. So I said, well, what if all black people voted for Biden? Every black person in this country that could vote voted for Biden. What would happen? And she said, well, he would win and Trump would lose. I said, okay, in 2016, almost all black folk that voted for Hillary Clinton. And we still got Trump. So she said, well, what are you saying? I said, I think we should boycott one presidential election. And this might be the one to boycott. But so then she was, I mean, she was astounded. She said, well, if you vote, don't vote, Trump is going to get in office again. I said, we did vote in 2016 and he still got in office. Why not, like the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan, who's a Muslim brother, Palestinian, I believe, he is urging, and so is Tlaib, the sister that represents that district in Congress. They are not voting this election because they said if the Muslims hold out on their vote for one election, I'm not talking about forever, but for one election, in 2028, they're going to be beating a path to the door. And so, she said, well, I just don't agree with that. I said, well, we voted again en masse for Hillary and she lost. Why not just stay out and then, bite the bullet for 4 years like we did with Trump, and in 2028 form a political bloc and now this is what we want or we'll do it again. Now, see, a lot of people say, well, Dr. King gave us a vote. We have to vote strategically. And in this election, I can't support Biden because of what has happened in Gaza. And also his broken promises about reparations that he promised before he got elected. He could right now have a commission to set up what we've been trying to get set up with HR 40 for years. He hasn't done it. And, I'm tired of the Democrats taking our vote for granted, as so many people have said. And, the orange menace is the orange menace,
Well, in Louisiana, we had a big election for governor, and they ran a candidate. He wasn't that well known, but he served in the past administration, the conservative Governor John Bel Edwards administration.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that came out about the Democratic Party was how they somewhat did not go all in for this candidate. And we had a lot of Democrats and so-called fair weather Democrat friends who crossed over and voted for the extremist right wing, and I call him a white supremacist, Jeff Landry.
He is.
Yeah. He can't. His history from my area. He worked for one of the most heinous sheriffs in South Louisiana, St. Martin Parish Sheriff Charles Fusillas, one of his mentor. And if you remember, back in the day, there was a Cuban uprising across the country. 3 major jail facilities, the Cuban detainees.
I remember that.
One of the facilities, and Jeff Landry served as a St. Martin Parish Sheriff Deputy. Okay. And it's amazing that we have people who are not actually that smart, but they apply their white supremacist views all over the place. And we have a congressman from the 3rd Congressional District who represents my district, Clay Higgins. Mm-hmm. Another joke. He actually, as a Opelousas police officer, he engaged in police brutality. He was forced to resign because the allegation came out about his police brutality. Then he went work for the sheriff department. Then he did that commercial, that one Crime Stoppers commercial where he said you round up all the youth or whatever he called gangbangers. That was mostly black folks.
Right.
He did this commercial where he had black folks behind him with and they standing up in some suits, some couple of preachers and law enforcement with automatic weapons. He said, we're going to round them up. And that went viral. And he went against the policy of the sheriff, local sheriff. They got rid of him. And from there, he went to Congress. So these are the people, Dr. Winbush, that Louisianians love. And a lot of our black folks thought that was cute. They thought that was funny. And they helped uplift him, Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's so weird that we have this mindset where people uplift the craziness. And you have that Trump mentality. I call that the Trump mentality. Trump is not necessarily the smartest one, Dr. Winbush.
He's stupid.
But they love this type of crazy stuff.
Well, I did my doctoral dissertation on identity formation in black folk. Like I wanted to ask the question, how did this country create a Clarence Thomas? How did this country create a what's it, Ben Carson, who lives here in Baltimore? Um, but also, and I'm going to get a little philosophical. When the Birmingham bombings occurred, Birmingham Church, 16th Street Baptist Church bombings occurred in 1963, which was just 3 weeks after Dr. King made his message, I Have a Dream. There was a sister that lived that actually knew one of the 4 young girls that were killed. Her name was Angela Davis. And there was another sister, because Angela was raised in Birmingham. There was another sister that lived about 8 blocks, I believe, away from 16th Street Baptist Church. And her name was Condoleezza Rice. And she knew one of the girls that was killed in the bombing. So as a psychologist, I asked myself, how did Angela Davis and Condoleezza Rice, raised a few blocks apart, experiencing the same tragedy and horrific bombing and killing of 4 girls, emerge? So I'm not surprised as a psychologist that you have Black folks supporting Trump. Not at all. Bobby Wright, I don't know if you ever read The Psychopathic Racist Personality, but Bobby and I went to school together up at Chicago. We did our doctorates together. And Bobby used to say, if they open up the membership of the Ku Klux Klan to Black people, some Black folk would join. Some Black folk would join.
Yes,
And
they would.
that's a bittersweet comment, on the mentality. See, I think, again, as a psychologist, I think that we are infected with white supremacy. It's like being infected with COVID or HIV, AIDS, or any other virus. And the virus of white supremacy, unfortunately, has been successful in, altering the brains, distorting perception among Black folk. We know it's done that among white folks, but it's also done it among us. And it's hard for us to critique how we've been affected and infected by white supremacy. We don't like to talk about it. We'll talk about white folks all day long. But then when it comes to talking about a Candace Owens, we're saying, maybe she'll come around. Maya Angelou always regretted the fact that she supported Clarence Thomas in 1991 when he took over the Supreme Court. She thought that he would somehow change when he got up there. He got worse. And so I think we all hope that our people will one day do the right thing and say we got to all vote against a Trump-like person. But I don't know if that's going to happen. And
Well,
some people call them Uncle Toms. I call them, my first book, I called them super slaves. These powerful Black people that are doing harmful things to Black people. And we've got to just, understand how white supremacy works, and many of us don't.
and it's almost, I mean, you could take a page from a fantasy situation, the Django movie.
Yeah,
They they got Black leadership here in Louisiana, and I'm very critical, and I don't get invited to too many functions. Our group and our circle, we don't get awarded. I mean, you saw the picture of the young sister. Well, the sister at that time was young when she led the march, and Gina,
right.
who done some thing, actually done organized protests, help file lawsuits, and they don't give her awards because we have this mentality when we do those banquets, those award banquets, those so-called NAACP banquets, and I'm not gonna put you into that because they get very passionate about when we criticize these groups for standing in the doorway of fighting
Right.
white supremacy, and they give awards out, and they have the same people they pick. They give awards to. I mean, someone you gave award to 10 years ago for being a state representative, who his greatest fame, and I like him. Um, I hope I'm friends with him after this. After I say this, and his claim to fame is developing a Creole license plate. That's That's and you know, we got a lot of black folks think they are another race called Creole here in South Louisiana, and which
Sure.
is separate from the thinking in the New Orleans or even the Caribbean. But the whole notion that white supremacists uses those things, they use groups in this area, they use culture, so-called cultural diversity situation for the benefit of to create a layer. Because I have a brother that I produce a show called Brother Darrell Muhammad. He's with the Nation of Islam.
Oh yeah.
Strong brother. We've been producing and directing that show for years. He said there's a hierarchy. You got white folks on top, everybody else in the middle, and black folks on the bottom. I tend to believe that in a sense that what the system is. I'm not feeling that way myself. I don't feel I'm at the bottom. But we know in real life we have to go through some things. What
That's
is
right.
your analogy of where black folks stand here in America as of 2024?
Well, we're in, and I'm not saying this in an exaggerated
Mm-hmm.
fashion. We're in a state of war, and we don't. It's an undeclared war against us. White people know it. You've heard Trump, the criminal that's running for president. You've heard him say that his election is going to be full of retribution. He's going to go after Fonnie Willis. He's going to go after Alan Bruce, I believe his name, up in New York. The sister who's the judge in Washington, D.C., that's trying to look. White people, when they get afraid, as I said before, they get violent. And we've seen this. January 6th was a lynch mob, and we're facing in November probably the most violent election in American history. If Trump wins, the election was fair. If he loses, the election was unfair. So either way, black folk are going to be caught up in that. And I really believe, and I've told my students at Morgan State, where I teach this, I believe that if Trump got up one day and said, uh, the cause of crime in this country are black people, and I am declaring martial law, deputizing every white person in this country to start making citizens arrests on black people, they would do it. This guy's a demagogue wanting to be a dictator. And we have, as black folk, have to realize that we are at war. It's not bad to be, I saw 27 million at last count black folk comment, look at, or participate in discussions with Cat Williams when he made that interview about a month or so ago. We good at talking about Beyonce. We love the Super Bowl. We're really, involved with any gossip about the hip hop stars that are out there. But, Dr. Welsing and Neely Fuller said on the first date, I tell my young people that on the first date, you should ask that young man or that young woman, what do you think about racism, white supremacy? And if they say something, well, I don't think about it, I don't care about it, you should go to the next person to date. You don't need to go out with that person. We have to get serious about the state of emergency that is in Africans in America right now and the war that has been undeclared against us for the past 400 years in many different ways. And I'm serious about that.
Yes, yes. Uh, I call that drill entertainment. Since they're always making reference to drill music. When we have that level of sniping, I mean, it almost came, if you want to believe that, what happened with Mike Epps and Shannon Sharp, they almost came to blows.
I
And like
know.
Mike say, I'm not gonna fight you all night. I'm gonna bang, 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 whatever the hell that means. But the whole point, people get those ideas. People are taking social media and running with that.
That's right.
Everybody got their own crew. Everybody got their own clique. That's the problem. How can you set example for these young folks when this is all they consuming? This type of rhetoric, nothing in the political realm. When we try to talk about things like what we're talking about, people say, I don't want to hear about that. I want to hear about the Super Bowl. I
That's
want to
right.
hear about the Dallas Cowboys. If you say something about the Cowboys, I'm going to roll on you. I
That's
mean, this
right.
is stuff that the nonsense that we get every day coming at us. And you got to understand, if a youngster is inundated from the cradle to his adult with that type of stuff in a cell phone connected to his head, to
That's
his
right.
ear every day, you're gonna have some problems with that youth, with those youth.
Well, you are, and there's a video. I think it's called it's on Netflix about the how social media has really divided us. I've been teaching, universities for 50 years. This is my 51st year of teaching at universities around the country. And I have seen an evolution of how children and students interact with each other. In the mid 70s, they were into, the politics of being black. The Panthers had been, Fred Hampton had just been shot, and they were into that. Nowadays, I was talking to my students last semester, and we were talking about like hip hop artists that were bad. They were talking about it, and I had never heard of this sister named Sexy Red. And they
Yeah,
said, Doc, you need to look at Sexy Red's video. I never heard of it. I was talking about Nicki Minaj and
yeah,
Megan Thee Stallion and stuff. I went home and looked at her video. I said, what is this? This is pornography set to a beat. And our young people are consuming it. The drill music that has come out of Chicago. I mean, this stuff, is perversion, and you won't see it. Stick, one of the members of Dead Prez, lives here in Maryland, and he was telling a group of us a couple years ago how the Dead Prez, very positive music and hip hop, but they don't sell because it's
right,
positive and it's political. He said how they presented a cover with black people shooting white people with AR-15s, and their producer said, or the record label said, we're not going to do that. He said a few weeks later, they presented one with black people shooting black people with AR-15. He said, that's great, no problem. That they didn't do that. But see, it shows that white people in power do not care about us. They will say, you can kill your own people, and we'll, protect that under the law. We'll support it at every level that we can. And black folk got to realize that. I'm not saying don't listen to Cat Williams, but I'm saying read a book. Read a book. Just do something for yourself to liberate your mind from white supremacy.
yeah. It's troubling that we have those. I think it's more to do with escapism, not to deal with the real issues. But the real issues are coming front and center. I have this picture right here. I want to show on screen. Uh, this is the governor. He's basically called a special session, Brother Winbush, to talk about the criminal justice issue and roll back everything. Every headlines deals with Jeff Landry. Uh, he wants to overhaul the criminal justice system, not for the better, for the
Right.
worse. And he even want to take over the public defender's office.
Oh my
He
God.
want to have a direct control over what the public defenders do in a state that's already last in every statistical category when it comes to criminal justice. It's last in everything when it comes to health outcomes. It's last in with everything when it comes to
Ed-
economics and
education.
education. And this is the people that they elected a former Louisiana sheriff deputy, much like the again. I'm repeat myself. The seven. I mean, I think it's the third congressional Congressman Clay Higgins, who y'all know on the national scene from saying some much more crazier things than
Right.
Donald
Right.
Trump. You know, so this is where we at today with certain politicians in Louisiana. They still don't get it. They believe in popularity and having people like that in office. And so the fight, we had a fight in the Democratic Party. Again, I'm going back to the first part of the show where you had progressives who said that some people in the Democratic Party, I'm a registered independent. If I'm gonna play that political game, I'm gonna be more independent minded.
Right.
And that's more of a protest to the Democratic Party. Now, some of the Democratic policies in the state of Louisiana in the last couple of years have been good, criminal justice reform. But these Democrats nowadays are somewhat doing a shell game with black folks in this state. And that's a problem. And then you got those who are in the Democratic Party in the state of Louisiana, so-called black leadership. They want to they only mantra is, well, we got to work with them. They got a super majority. But I look at what the young brothers did in Tennessee.
There you
At
go.
least that's a start.
That's
To
right.
fight against something like that.
That's right. Well, I'm glad you mentioned it, bro. I had the pleasure of meeting. I gave the keynote address in Memphis for last Juneteenth. I had the pleasure of meeting one of the brother with the big afro,
Yeah.
strong black young man. He doesn't care about the supermajority Republican, and the supermajority Republicans in Tennessee are all Trump supporters, all of them.
Exactly.
And he doesn't care about that. He said, and see, this is when we got to stand, regardless of us getting arrested, kicked out of legislatures, whatever. The brother is strong. And, what is it? Wade Nobles, the psychologist, colleague of mine out in California, he popularized this term. It's an ancient term called jegna. And jegna is from the Ethiopian, the Aramaic people who say that a jegna is somebody who has deep knowledge of their community. They know their history, they know their culture, they know the laws that govern them, everything. And that jegnas protect their community. They will do anything to make sure that their community is not assaulted by outside forces. And they are also willing to die for their community. And see, my argument now, Brother Jay, is that we don't have that many jegnas in the black community. We used to, Malcolm, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, Fred Hampton. But we don't have that many jegnas in our community anymore. And so you get guys in like this governor that y'all got down there, and who's destroying. We elect politicians that'll say things like you just said. Well, we got to deal with the supermajority. You got to stand for what is right, and black folk have always stood for justice. And what we've got to do is continue to do that and not try to accommodate extremism that is attacking our community. Brother Jay, you still there?
I'm back, Brother Winbush. Yes,
okay.
I'm back.
Okay.
Yes, I got the crux of what you were saying. Again, what can we do? What are some of the solutions you see? However the mountaintop is for black folks here in America, what are some of the solutions that you might suggest for some of the ills that we are facing as a community all over the place?
Yeah, well, in my book, Warrior Method, I list what I call the 10 commitments, not the 10 commandments, the 10 commitments, what you ought to do to make yourself a better African. And one of the first ones, which is so fundamental, you need to read something about African people at least 30 minutes a day. Just read. I don't care what it can be a history of Louisiana. It can be a geographical view of Ethiopia. It can talk about the Twa people from Central Africa. You need to read something about black folk at least 30 minutes a day. Another thing I suggest, one of the things that we used to do after enslavement was form reading clubs, because a lot of us coming out of enslavement, there's 4 to 5 million of us coming out of enslavement, couldn't read. So those who could read taught those who couldn't read, and they did that by forming these book clubs, and they would read a book a month. So I think reading is fundamental. That's an old saying, but I believe it's true. Other thing, try to volunteer at least 5 hours a month, something to do with helping Black folk. I don't care what it is, coach a basketball game, start a chess club. As I said earlier, start a reading circle, so that people can read a book together. But do something for Black people. Write your congressman or your local official. Get involved politically with people. So there's a lot of things that we can do. And again, I'm not trying to say, the one thing I do say in those 10 commandments, turn the TV off one day of the week. Cut out all social media just one day out of the week and get with your family. If you live by yourself, read a book. So there's a lot of things we can do. We need, like, Marimba Ani has coined the phrase ayuresa, and it's a I'm sorry, I'm blocking on the word, but anyway, it means self-improvement. It means self-improvement. And we have to do the reparations inside of ourselves, get rid of some of the things that we traditionally do and work, towards being a better African. So there's a lot of things we can do. But, a lot of times, like I said, we get distracted.
Yeah, that's in it. It's almost like entertainment is an essential part of Black folks' well-being, more so than being more creative. We got a lot of good entertainers, and they can make the best liquor and market the best liquor for us, and we can
Right.
Sing and dance. But can we build rocket ships?
That's right.
Can we manufacture ball bearings?
That's
Can
right.
we invent the next breakthrough in medicine? This is the thing I think Black folks need to make more of a priority, as far as everybody's up on social media showing off that we acquired a small business and so forth, and showing off our homes. When we get a home, we doing the signing, we taking a picture, and that's great. But it seems like we have this thing where we have to show each other that we are, we have arrived in such a way. Sometimes it's good to just go stealthily, and do some things, and then try to bring up everybody else in your community. But
Well, Dr. Welsing used to say, she said that most Black people are not trying to counteract white supremacy and the system of white supremacy. What most of us are doing is trying to find a more comfortable place in it. And that's reflected in the things you just said, Brother Jay. We brag about what we've got, the clothes we wear, all of this stuff. I asked my students the other day, I said, who do you think has done more for the Black community? And this is no disrespect, Beyonce or Rosa Parks. And a lot of the students hesitated. They said, well, Rosa Parks gave us our freedom, but Beyonce gives money to charity, and she has us feeling proud of ourselves. So they know, again, 50 years ago, if I had asked my students that, Beyonce wasn't born then, but if I had said Aretha Franklin and Rosa Parks, everybody would have said Rosa Parks. So we got to change our kids' mentality too and talk to them about stuff. Like I said, I think we're in a state of emergency right now. I think there's an undeclared war against us, and we have to act like that. And if it's a state of emergency, somebody say the house is on fire, you don't sit there and say, let's talk some more about Cat Williams. You say, let's get up out of here. Let's do something. Put the fire out. And we're not doing that.
I've seen, going back to Tennessee, the neo-Nazi group marched in Memphis. I think it was Memphis the other day.
No,
Not
it was Nashville, my old town. Yeah,
Nashville.
right.
Yeah.
Last Saturday. And one of my colleagues I've lived in Nashville for 20 years, taught at Vanderbilt and Fisk, in fact. They said there was no counter demonstrations against them. None. So if I were a Nazi, I'm really going,
right.
I would say, boy, I walked down the middle of Broadway. Broadway is like the main street in Nashville where all those country music joints are and all these things. And nobody was in opposition. I said, let's do this again. We'll grow. We could have at least put 20 or 30 bodies out there holding up signs denouncing them, you know. But we just, again, we probably were at home looking at some
Yeah.
TV and stuff like that.
I,
And they
I was
marched.
looking at Eddie Griffin this this Shannon Sharp. I mean, that's the norm, and it's some good. I mean, you can learn from that,
Right.
but then when you think about it, it doesn't make any sense because they're all some people who doing fairly well on the entertainment circuit, and I understand everybody want to roll on their ops, their
Yeah.
opponents, but it it I just don't have no understanding where all this come from, you know.
Well, you know, I remember seeing this interview with Michael Jordan, and he said something I never forgot. This was way before that series that was done during the pandemic. But he said, the guy asked him, the reporter asked him, how do you guard an opponent? He said, I never look at the ball that the opponent has. I never look at his eyes, and I rarely look at his feet. He said, well, what do you look at? He said, I look at his waist. He said, you can move your eyes and the ball that'll distract you. He said, but you can't move your waist like that. And he said he would follow his waist, and then that's the direction he was going in. See, many of us, we looking at the ball, the feet, the eyes, everything, but the source of our challenge, and the source of our challenge is racism, white supremacy.
Right.
And we are just distracted so easily about stuff. We will talk ad infinitum about things that really don't matter to us right now. And again, I'm not a stick in the mud saying you can't go to a movie, you can't enjoy a play or anything like that. But that should be secondary to understanding how racism, white supremacy works and doing something about it, getting involved with your political structure, getting involved with teaching or volunteering and stuff like that.
Yes, and when we talk about those words, and I say it on our radio show, can we say the words white supremacy here in Louisiana, here on some of the platform? It's a hard word for others to deal with. And I asked all the time, can we say these words on the radio, on television, white supremacy? And we get that side-eyed look. You're not necessarily, we could say it on other shows that we're part of. We could say it. Brother Darrell Muhammad, shout out to him on the Community Defender every other Sunday. He says it all the time. And this is the norm. What you're seeing going on a global level, white supremacy on the rise. And it always been on the rise, but on the rise like no other. And we got people like Putin, we got people like Trump, and even people would say that country that everybody is stressing over with America, Ukraine, they're racist themselves. So white supremacy is front and center.
It's
And
global.
as for on a global level, Dr. Winbush, what do you see as far as the rise of white supremacy and whether or not Russia, Trump, and those mindsets like them will continue to move forward as far as having a strong foothold in everybody's communities around the country, around the world, on a global perspective?
Well, we're in bad shape. Michael Bradley, the guy that wrote the Iceman Inheritance, when I was teaching at Vanderbilt, I brought him to Vanderbilt, and he gave a lecture that was packed. I never will forget this. And Michael Bradley was white from Canada. He made his transition just a couple of years ago, in fact. And Bradley told me something I'll never forget. He said that before the global white collective loses its power, it will destroy the earth. And we're seeing that right now. There's a nuclear plant right now in Ukraine that is teetering on exploding or having another meltdown like we had in Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island back in the 70s. This could cause a global catastrophe. Uh, what Trump said the other day, that he would, tell Putin to do whatever he wanted to do with a NATO country that didn't pay their dues. These are dangerous things. That idiot Tucker Carlson went over there and interviewed Putin, and he was showing. I don't know if you saw it, but he was showing people the subway in Moscow compared to a New York subway. He was showing a grocery store, and see, I believe that what is happening in America is that these conservative people like Trump, Tucker Carlson, all of these people, Clarence Thomas, they're trying to get us used to being in a totalitarian government so that we will accept fascism. And Toni Morrison told us, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, at a commencement address at Howard University, she said that there are 10 steps to fascism. And if you read those things that she said 30 years ago, we're probably now at step number 5 or 6. We're on our way. And I know if we think it's bad for African people in this country now, it's going to get worse if we see the rise of a totalitarian government in this country the way it is in Russia and other places.
Yes, it's evident right here in the state of Louisiana. This governor wants to spend all this money and have the Louisiana State Police, a law enforcement jurisdiction that has serious problems and implicated in the murder of Brother Ronald Green. Everybody followed that case, right? Sure. He wants to spend millions of dollars to have them enforce laws in the city of New Orleans. And you saw that what happened in Jackson, Mississippi, with the passing of different legislation to have a separate court.
That's right.
And so you see those things, and all of these so-called conservative Republican governors have the same playbook.
That's right.
All of them say outrageous things, do outrageous stuff, go against the norm, and you have that conservative agenda just rolling right along, unopposed. And we, it's like, I picture us, I'm saying, I hate to say this, we going to the chamber or the gas chamber or the gallows willingly, like some sheep. I shouldn't think like that, but
Well, a lot of us are. And I think, again, we have to do hard criticism of our community. I thought the most dangerous time in this country, I lived through the 60s, my roommate in college was Barry Black, who is the, Senate chaplain right now. And we were there when Dr. King was killed, and marched about it. So I lived through the 60s. I thought that was the most dangerous time, Brother Jay, in my life. This is now the most dangerous time in my life, because we are on the brink of a government of the United States, the most powerful nation that was ever on this planet, more powerful than Rome. It is about to install a fascist, and that is going to affect us directly. And again, if we don't get serious about this stuff, if we don't say, look, not that we don't have fun anymore, but we have got to get serious about making sure that we are in a counter-racist program in ourselves mentally as well as in groups. And, we're not doing that now. I don't want to end on a pessimistic note, but, we got to tell the truth.
And Dr. Winbush, our time is running down. But I want to get some info. How can we contact you? Give us the name of your book, and you have a website. How we could get in touch with you?
I've got 4 books out. You can just tap in Ray Winbush on Amazon. I always tell people to try to buy it at a Black bookstores, which are also in trouble right now across this country. You can call me at Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland. Leave a message on my phone. Just call Morgan State and leave a message. I will return your phone call. And you can follow me on social media on Facebook. I like Facebook because Twitter is like the wild, wild west. Instagram, I don't even know why that is. It's just
Yeah.
stupid to me. But at least on Facebook, you can discuss some of these issues. So
Right.
you can find me on Facebook under Ray Winbush. And like I said, I'll answer my phone. There's no middle people.
Yeah. And again, we hope to have you back in the near future. And on the radio on the 88.3 FM KIEE, I think I ironed out all our technical glitches. We have a short part of the beginning that's shout out to all the people watching on cable TV right now in the 5 parish area, 5 counties for Dr. Winbush
It's
of
good.
South Louisiana. To have you on, brother, is a blessing. It's a privilege to have you on. We appreciate you, and I'm gonna be listening to you because you could go back on Carl Nelson. And
I'll
yeah,
be Carl. That's my
yeah.
boy.
All is always give us some great show ideas. So we
And Brother Jay,
appreciate
you continue the work that you're doing is very important. I'm an educator, but you are educating the masses, and that's very important for us to do.
it. Yeah. Well, yeah, with the limited platforms that we have, we will make sure in other words, we get in where we could fit in down here in the South.
That's right. That's right.
So we appreciate you, and I'll be calling you down the line, Dr. Winbush. Thank you so much.
No problem. Take care.
Bye-bye. There you go. You had brother Dr. Professor Ray Winbush. Please get at him. A great scholar. We can hope to have him back on Real Talk TV. Thank you so much for viewing this show today.